Hi, this is BetGo from Grinder School. We're going to do a Grinder School short. I'm going to do a hand history review of a play of a student on the 4-180s. Those are slow tournaments. His ROIs may be 20%. Mine was 100% before I got kicked off for being US. And some ways the students is close to 100% of these. I mean, you can't do that. Like in the 16-18s, I had like an 18% ROI, which was like huge. Most people had 10% or under, but these are very slow, so it requires a lot of your time, and there's not much, money. But 100% ROI, you're making $4. But so he's got a lot of leaks here because if you're under 50% ROI. I'm gonna look at some hands that are interesting that he played well, or interestingly, mostly gonna look at mistakes though. Okay, what did we flop here? Oh, the check's fine to start with. We flopped flush draw, straight draw, and top pair. Okay, so the play here is to just get the money in. You can shove here. This is also an action flop because there are 3 wheel cards, so an ace has a straight draw. In addition, most pocket pairs are pocket pair is either a set, an open-ended straight draw, or an overpair. And so you're going to get a lot of action here. Plus, there's a 2 flush here. So I think you could just shove this, or you can make it like 360, 400, whatever. Just shove any turn since you're out of position. You bet first. So you really need to semi-bluff here with a monster draw. And I don't really like the raise here that much. I mean, he bets tiny. We make this small raise. And then what if he shoves on us? It puts us in a difficult situation. So, yeah, I think maybe just call the little bet at this point is best. If you're going to raise, raise enough to commit yourself. Well, I guess we won the hand, or we won the side pot, but it's pretty badly played. Okay, this is fine. This is fine. Now, I probably lead out. I know he's expecting a bet. But if you're going to check raise, you got to check raise a little larger. There's really not much point in this. You're only trying to get 300 out of him. 200 more, and there's 1,020, 75 in the pot. After you just call the bet. So you got to make it at least 600. If he doesn't call you, he doesn't call you. But he's probably got the ace. He just made aces up, so. Okay, this is also pretty badly played. Sorry, hero. These go on for a lot of hands. I'm just covering some key situations, so it's maybe a little bit longer Grinder School short than usual. Okay, open raise is fine, standard. Okay, the bluff 4 bet is interesting. And this guy had just won a pot with king, so he figures he's being aggressive at this point. And so it's a good read. And, normally I wouldn't try that at this stage of a 4-180 because, people usually don't 3-bet light. So it's a good play. You can almost shove here. The point is, also with this hand, you're almost getting odds to call once you probably, it is a fold if you make the bet and then you get shoved on. But there's some reason, I think maybe shoving might be the better play, actually. Because, you probably get more folds. This is a little bit of a light defend. I think it's okay. People raise so small. But most regulars would not defend here. Okay, this is interesting also. Because when the flop comes ace-king, he's going to c-bet like every time. And there's a good chance he doesn't have it. So, I mean, it's a question whether it's worth making this play. But it's an interesting play, and it did work. There's also a question: if you really had the ace or the king, would you check raise? Ace, obviously, you're not really representing a king. If you really had the ace, would you check raise or you just check call or whatever? And the board's fairly dry, but it's just gonna be hard for him to call that, unless he's got the ace, at least. It does look pretty scary, even though maybe not representing that much. Okay, this hand is horrible. I mean, the raise is fine. Standard. This is kind of a standard play these days, to raise small at the limper. It's certainly okay to, you can make it 1,000, or you can make it 1,600, or you could just limp behind. Although, limping behind is not popular these days. I'm a little old school. Okay, we hit pretty big. We have a backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw, and top pair good kicker. So I think it'd be more normal to raise. And I don't know if you're worried about Disinfector getting in there and you got a little more chips, but I just raise, get the money in. And I guess maybe we're multi-tabling. I don't think this guy's playing that many tables, but you can't fold at this point. I mean, it's sort of a bad turn card, but I haven't necessarily realized that he's got the jack. If he's got the jack, we still have 3 outs. If a jack hits, and he's sort of on the, then we'd have a higher straight. This is horrendously played. You can't just call the flop and fold the turn with a hand like this. It's insane. It's a huge leak. This guy plays pretty well, but he has some huge leaks, so hopefully I'll fix them. It's pretty standard. I think this guy's a regular. Also, regular's probably not likely to have an ace when he flat calls. I think you see bet this kind of ace rag flop and then give up is better. I mean, it's a sort of on the one hand, when you check, you usually have something. Usually that check usually means a weak ace or a mid to high pocket pair. Because or maybe a set or something. Because you see, could be a slow play, but it's more likely you got something. Because if you had nothing, you would see bet this. But I'd go ahead and see bet this anyway, even though we have something to show down. I think it's worth to get us in that kind of guessing game out of position that we got into. We've got a bigger stack. Here's the final table bubble, but I'm not sure I like calling that raise out of position. I mean, if you called it in the big blind, you're out of position, but you're getting a little better odds in the small blind. But it's an okay flat. Okay, the better play here is to just shove. The reason, again, we have overcards and a straight draw. We also have a backdoor second nut threat flush draw, which is worth about 5%. And the straight draw is worth like 22% or something in our win percentage, so it's pretty significant. So whatever he has, we're probably not in terrible shape. And also, this is a really bad flop for the pre-flop raiser. If we've got ace king, ace queen, stuff like that, small pocket pair, it's not good for him. Middle cards connected, it's a caller's flop. The callers are more likely to have a suit connect or a pocket pair or something. So we bluff on the river, which is one way to play a draw, of course. And he makes a hero call. I guess this guy's a regular. I don't terribly like his call or totally like how he played it, but or how he's been playing stuff. But of course, a regular in a 4-1-80 I don't necessarily have a lot of respect for, but. Okay, here, in good time, we got short stack, but we made top pair against aces. I don't think it was that terribly played. I went into it. Here with 16 big blinds, I think this is a shove, particularly we have these 2 big stacks there that could mess with us. So, you can shove for like 16 big blinds. Usually, with middle strength hands like this. Now, this huge stack donks into us. I think this is also a shove on the flop, and again, I kept telling the guy, shove pre-flop, shove the flop, but because we got the gut shot and we have the third nut backdoor flush draw. It's not great, but I think he folds a lot, and we're not in terrible shape, against a dime. Against a king, it's not so great, but if he really had it, how come he doesn't play for the check raise? So, and he does show that he had nothing. Although I guess he was ahead, but he couldn't have called us, which is part of the point of why the semi-bluff is correct. Semi-bluff doesn't seem to be in this guy's toolbox. The correct play here is also to shove. We got like 14 big blinds. And into 5 players. It's a borderline shove, but I think it's better to fold than a min raise. I mean, when you're the short stack like this, and it's just not a good situation to play that hand. Probably out of position. This is also a shove. Again, we don't want to raise into these big stacks, and the awareness of stack size, both your stack size and their stack size. Yes, post flop's okay, but you thought I still got outplayed, and though it was just checked down. So you don't really want to get into post flop with the big stacks if you can help it. This is really awful. Because of your position and all, Sam doesn't play well post flop. You're the shorter stack. I don't think you can shove this into 4 players. So I think if it was suited, you could. Suited is a lot stronger in terms of the win percentage and so on. So I think the correct play is to fold. Now here, I think the correct play is also to shove. Even though it's 21, 22 big blinds. I mean, again, those kind of plays are popular these days. And considering, again, we have this big stack here. There's not much of an ICM because we're 3-handed. These 2 stacks are close. So there's hardly any ICM factor. And this is plenty strong enough hand to shove for 20 big blinds. And be a little more against 1 player. And it just doesn't play well post-flop, plus you have this big stack. And again, could be messy with you, although you do a position on him. On both players, actually. Now, this is a mistake. I think you have to c-bet this flop represent the ace. Ace could be worried about another heart or something. And it's a hard flop for people to call. A lot of times they're not going to have something. So, okay. So again, the big stack. Big stack actually had made 2 pair, but I mean, he probably wasn't going anywhere on the board. But you don't know that, so I would definitely c-bet that. And you are getting outplayed by that guy about what is it, Bodice or whatever. I don't think he's a terribly good player, but he sort of knows how to use the big stack. Here, I think an overshove is a little better. It's not really a shove. Again, I think a shove's better. This guy doesn't seem to know that shove play either. It's maybe 16 big blinds, blind versus blind. We got the king, so it's plenty strong enough to shove. So it doesn't play that well post flop. Okay, that's fine for the bet there. Now here we call the overshove. There's this like 17, 18 big blinds. I think it's a good call. The reason I think it's a good call, you have the ace, and you have ace suited, or yeah, the suited ace. But I mean, you're not in great shape against a suited ace. But the point is, there's a lot of dead money in there, and usually he's got an ace or a pocket pair when he does this. Usually it's not a super strong hand, but he could definitely be doing it. But you're a little behind those hands, but then he could be doing it with like a suited king, king 5 suited or something like that, or king jack, queen 10, stuff like that would be the kind of hands you might do this with. You're probably not doing it with a real premium hand, which also means that 5 hands that dominate king queen, I'll give you ace queen, king ace king, and queens through aces. all really big hands, it's very unlikely he overshoves those. So I think this is a correct call. Unfortunately, I think it's a bust out hand. Okay, so I think that we covered some interesting issues: the need to semi-bluff, the overshot pre-flop, being a little careful of your stack size, and not raising so much when you're a little shorter, and being a little wary of the big stack and how not getting involved, not giving them a lot of chance to make plays at you, or being where you may be making plays. Okay, so we'll let you go.